And unfortunately, we cannot hold the event live. Yeah. But what is important is that we decided to organize this session just to try to give you a vision on what will be the winning strategy to integrate retail, leisure, and entertainment solution within retail side. In recent years, we have experienced a big growth of leisure and entertainment activity within retail location and more generally within the lifestyle destination. I mean, every kind of destination where people could shop, live, and play. So shopping malls, city center, transport hubs, tourism destination. So today, leisure is clearly a key asset for retail destination, and this is due to the key role that the experience play in consumers' behavior. The experience today could drive consumer decision, and this is a consequence of the digital revolution. Today, thanks to the digital, we can make some basic needs online. No needs to move and go in physical places just to buy a product to get a price. But we need to offer to the consumer something more. That's why today leisure and entertainment are key for retail destination, because they could increase the footfall and dwell time of consumer and the clients within the destination. This is a big game changer for all the retail players. That's for this reason that we decided to launch last year an event dedicated to leisure player willing to expand their activity within the retail property market. As the event is LeisurUp, it will have take place should have take place as a side event of MAPIC next November. But as I told you, this year is a very special year because of the consequences of the pandemic. So that prevent us to hold physical events, to attend physical events. That's why MAPIC and LeisurUp will be a 100% digital event this year. But I will be back on our events in a few minutes. What I just want to underline is that the consequences of pandemic acted as an accelerator of some big changes that was already underway in leisure and retail market, forcing all us to start acting to prepare the new normal, new future. And that's why we think it was important to talk today about how to reinvent retail with leisure and entertainment. So the speakers we have invited, the experts, we shared the vision, try to answer to some important question that all the leisure player and property player have today. Question like how to integrate leisure within retail destination. What are the right business model to create a sustainable and profitable business for either for landlords and for leisure operator, and what are the kind of leisure attraction activities that are growing faster and presumably will dominate the scene in the next year. So that's the point we will to analyze. Before leaving the stage to our speaker, just as I told you, we'll have MAPIC and LeisurUp will be totally digital this year. And how we will look like. So we will have a live platform that will be live during 2 months. We will start on November 2 and will be live. We will be working, up to the end of the year. This platform will give all participants the free access to the key decision maker in the retail and leisure property and the retail property market and leisure industry, and access to a library of content with exclusive market analysis, research, project presentation, some register session, and last but not least, we will have a live part of the platform on November 17 and 18 with almost 15 streamed session, live session, and matchmaking events. So if you are interested in developing your business in the retail market, the property market, please come to visit us on our virtual booth here at LeisurUp, or visit our website. I will give you some information. So just before leaving the stage to our speakers, some technical information. You can interact among yourself through the conversation boxes you see in the right bottom corner of your screen. And you can post there also your question. We'll try to answer at the end of the session. We will have a 10 minutes Q&A session at the end of the session. So now I invite Yael to join me on stage. Yael Coifman, Senior Partner over LDP, that will moderate the session. Yael?
Yep. You should see me now.
Yael, yes.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Bit of a delay, apparently.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Francesco. That's very kind. I just wanted to welcome everyone to this session on reinventing retail with leisure and entertainment. We have a great group of panelists who have graciously joined us to discuss topics they're involved in and the challenges when it comes to integrating leisure into more commercial developments. But first, I want to take a step back and talk about where we are now. Entertainment in retail settings is not new. You know, Jerry Hines saw the potential back in the 80s when he put an ice skating rink in the middle of the Galleria Mall in Houston. But the thing is, it has always been challenging with the tenant mentality of the retail owner and developer. So generally, it's been very limited to basic tenants such as cinema, bowling, FEC. Some major developments were able to amp this up a bit, such as the Mall of America, Lotte World, West Edmonton, but it did seem that things stalled for a while after that. In the past 10 years, however, we have seen major developers in the Gulf spearheading a movement to incorporate real attractions. MAF and EMAR invested heavily in both paid and free entertainment attractions such as indoor ski, aquariums, and the Dubai Fountain. And this was in order to differentiate their malls and drive more footfall in, I want to point out, a very already overly retailed market. I would note that, as an economist who looks at attraction feasibility, I know that attractions can rarely pay commercial rent. Initial capital investment requirements and operating costs, especially labor, are a huge burden. And here in Europe, as well as the US, we currently have a retail industry which has been struck with several challenges over recent years. First off, the consolidation of the industry has impacted the holding companies who now have multiple assets and shopping centers in overlapping markets. Secondly, of course, there's the impact of online retail. As more and more people are shopping online, footfall to bricks and mortar centers has been falling. And this is, of course, prior to our current situation, which is including COVID. So as a result, the need for entertainment is even stronger than it has been before. We've seen this in parts through smaller commercial leisure facilities, such as the growth in competitive socializing we mentioned the other day, or active play tenants such as Bounce. But the mindset in most cases is still filling space, not partnership. There are some glimmers of hope, however, as we have seen some of our more forward-thinking retail mall developer clients begin to invest and partner with attraction and leisure concepts. So today, I have the pleasure of introducing three speakers who have dealt with these challenges and will discuss the way they integrated leisure into developments, as well as the business models and the solutions that they found. So first off, I would like to introduce Gilles Devendille, who is the founding CEO of Real Consulting. His company is specialized in leisure, retailtainment, and placemaking strategy globally. The last achievements are the opening of the Two Rivers Mall in Kenya, of the Mall of Switzerland, and the master positioning of the Morocco Mall in Marrakesh. Each project is fully leisure-centric and delivers exclusive concepts and technology innovations. Now I'm going to pass this over to Gilles, who's going to present to you a little bit more detail about the Mall of America and the process that they went through. Gilles?
Yes, thank you so much. What I would like to do today is to tell you the story behind the scene, not only of a grand opening of a mall, but on which leisure was the X factor to create an immersive destination. But you will learn with us also at the end to save the full project. At the beginning of this story, there was a mall in the middle of nowhere, more precisely in the middle of Swiss mountain. This mall is in Lucerne. As you can see, there is not much catchment area or domestic market. Everything was to be imagined to drive a destination with 2 or 3 hours cars, which is a huge challenge even in Switzerland. We decided to raise that challenge, and we brought all the best leisure you can imagine nowadays, with a full modern 4-5D IMAX Pathé movie, with a super spa facing the mountain with an outdoor capacity. We designed an architecture on which there was a rooftop open, totally open, with a view on the mountain, with a huge e-bar we could activate during the summer. And the last but not the least, the first ever surfing indoor area with a lounge bar that had never been imagined before. Retailtainment, of course, was the second pillar of this. And you can have a quick look at the opening ceremony. Fine. So as you see, everything is perfect in a perfect world. However, it was a very long road between creating unique concept and implementing properly in the long run. And we had to face a lot of challenge, unexpected, like every time you deal with leisure. Vacancy to activate, tenant stepping out, opening event lasting weeks awaiting an anchor. Just a look at this picture. You see that crowded floor with every happy people. Indeed, it is a 5,000 square meter empty floor. We had to activate in only 2 weeks. The wonderful surfing indoor area in global exclusivity was not impossible to deliver on time because investor and operator had stepped out 3 months before the opening. So we had in 2 weeks to create a surf campus, replacing a huge mega wave by a pocket surf, and to tell an incredible marketing story explaining to people that we were not late, but we had taken an opportunity to give them time to learn surfing. And as you can see, it worked indeed. People trust us. So it worked very well, and we were even awarded at the Lions competition in Cannes for this campaign, which came indeed from nowhere. However, we hadn't solved all the problem because we had two major attractions which did not found an operator and on which landlord had to reinvest. First, the surfing area, and second, a very exclusive tailor-made nursery. So all the traditional question came back very quickly. Who invest, who pay, who manage? New business models were, however, found between suppliers and landlord, joint venture, management fees, leaseback, and franchising. And at the end, fortunately, it was a happy end. We can say that Leisure completely saved the project. I would even say that this project was awarded at MAPIC during the MAPIC Awards as one of the best retailtainment projects. So it was a long way. We had to imagine a new business model, but we did it at the end. And leisure saves them all. Thank you, Yael.
Thank you, Gilles. Thank you very much. Next up, I'd actually like to introduce Ashley Blake. Ashley is the CEO of Orion Real Estate, which is a leisure property fund that owns leisure real estate in the UK. He is also the current chairman of the Leisure Property Forum, which is a trade body with 1,300 members in the UK for leisure property. And he previously had a retail portfolio at Landsec, the UK's largest property company, with some £4 billion of shopping centres and leisure. Ashley, I know, had a video he wanted to share, but due to technology challenges, I think he's just going to tell us a bit about the project. So Ashley, over to you. We can't hear you, Ashley.
Oh, hang on.
Now you're on.
Is that better now? Can you hear me okay?
Yep, got it now.
No?
Yeah.
You got it now. Good. Okay, fantastic. Good stuff. Yeah, my video is quite large, so it would crash your presentation, but you can catch it on YouTube. It's publicly available, and I'll give you the link later on. So our business is a leisure-only business. We specialize in rescuing and turning around leisure venues that are in trouble. And we've had many of the same issues that shopping centre owners and others have had, getting new leisure concepts open. So as in a case study, we took on a scheme which was 50% empty about 4 years ago. And in order to fix that particular issue and bring in new leisure concepts, we had to basically find entrepreneurs in various sectors within leisure and almost act as a sort of partner with them, a business partner, to get them into our scheme. And we've done that through capital incentives and other support programs to get them open. And that has led to things like virtual reality centers, escape rooms, mini golf. And in fact, we've just opened a robot-themed live cafe and visitor attraction where robots serve you food and drink. And this is 2 local entrepreneurs who've, got no financial covenant, but they had the skills and the passion to launch it. So as a landlord, we've had a strategy on what sort of uses do we want, and we want uses that are different. I think customers now are bored of a lot of uses. They want to be wowed. They want to have experiences which are unusual. And as a landlord and a developer, that means going out of your comfort zone with the sort of things that you're letting into your schemes, and being creative about how you can create spaces for these people. So I do think that retail will have to see a lot more of this. And I mean, COVID has been awful for us and for our tenants, our operators, but it will actually shake the tree. And I think we'll see many shopping centres and leisure schemes having to do very different stuff in the future if they want to stay occupied and stay relevant. And landlords will have to be much more focused on the end uses and the attractiveness of their operators, and not just on maximum covenants, financial issues, valuation. My view is if things trade well and are busy, the valuation will take care of itself. But that's the attitude that many landlords will have to get into. And we've certainly noticed in the Leisure Property Forum that a lot of our new members are doing things that our members weren't doing even 12 months ago. We have members who do axe throwing. We have members with racing simulation. There's some crazy ideas out there now, and they all have their place, but you just have to embrace them effectively.
Thank you. Thank you for that. I'm sure we're going to touch on all of that a little bit more once we're all up and running. At this point in time, though, I'd like to introduce Thomas Rose, just to give him a little time to introduce himself and probably highlight some projects he's worked on. Thomas is the co-founder of P3, which is a real estate consultancy based in London. P3 provides investors, developers, and occupiers with advice across mixed-use schemes throughout Europe. And Thomas has been involved in a lot of innovative leasing solutions across the leisure sector, including food halls, cinemas, IP-based attractions, and other leisure concepts. And Thomas, if you want to tell us a couple of key things you think we should keep in mind, and then we can get to the open discussion.
Yeah, hopefully you can all hear me.
Yes.
It's amazing when the technology works. Yeah, I think just continuing on from some of the points that were made just before and your fantastic introduction, I think there's so much going on in the current market, particularly before COVID, but particularly COVID has sped up these issues. The two things I really want to investigate with the panel, and as a true panelist, I'm throwing the questions back out and not giving any answers. It is really around destination attractions, how we make those work in terms of business models, but also critically local attractions. I think COVID has sped up the rise of localism. The working from home thing is not going to go away. So we have this increasing emphasis on localism and how you create local attractions, local destinations, which are even harder to fund because typically their footfall will be lower, the revenues will be lower, but still incredibly relevant. And I think what we've been seeing, certainly at P3 on the schemes we advise across our landlord and developer clients, is you have some great flagships, Mall of America, Battersea Power Station, multi-billion pound, multi-billion dollar schemes, and they have one way of needing funding, but also the local schemes, which are increasingly going to be important. How do we fund those and how do we structure those business models? So I'm looking forward to discussing that.
Cool, thank you, Thomas. Okay, I think now if we can get Ashley and Gilles back on, we can actually start a little panel conversation, which I'm looking forward to. Gilles?
We're back.
Hey, this worked too. It's always a start. Okay, guys, well, listen, I just want to start our conversation. We're just going to touch on various topics. I'd like to start off with, I consider a softball question, but you guys are coming at it from the property side. So my question is, what exactly are the benefits of putting attractions or leisure into a commercial real estate environment? What do they bring to the table that actually makes the overall project better? Thomas, maybe I'll start with you.
I think when there was this massive growth of leisure really starting to go into retail destinations, maybe 10 years ago, and really elevating the speed of that 5 years ago, it was all about extending the retail hours. The leisure was purely there to enable the shops and the restaurants to trade after 6 p.m. to 10 p.m. I think we've gone further than that now. I think now leisure, if you don't have that element, your mall looks weaker. You don't have the excitement. You don't have the return visitation. All of these things are so important. And the example of Mall of Switzerland is incredible. The breadth of offer. And I think ultimately it creates customer loyalty. People want experience. We've said that for years and years, but they want to feel part of something. Lots of these leisure pastimes now provide community. You can go surfing with your friends in a mall. Who would have thought that could have happened? But actually, you can go there, learn something as well, enjoy yourself and learn. So I think it's about extending the hours. It's about being part of a community, and it's about creating a sense of destination.
Gilles, what have you seen in terms of Mall of Switzerland? I mean, what are the key sort of top 3 benefits of adding that much leisure into the mall from your perspective?
Well, I think that this is an extreme business case, because as we saw, without leisure, we wouldn't even not have been able first to open. Mm-hmm. Second, we have given time to leasing to finish the job by creating some kind of moving from opening event to a long-term activation. It was also a way to tell a story that made sense in a baby destination around the surf. This is important. Just take a moment. We are talking about surfing as save a mall in the middle of the Swiss mountains. It is a miracle every day.
And to be honest, if you'd asked any hardcore retail developer 5 years ago, they would have thought you were crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
An attraction save a retail development, a commercial development. How is that possible? And they probably turn away and think you were completely nuts.
Yeah, same way people started skiing in Dubai 10 years ago. We try to make people surf in mountains. Anything is possible. The only question is who pay and who manage.
which is where we're going to go to now with Ashley. So Ashley, with your project, with the 12th Street project, I mean, you clearly put in some thought in terms of you wanted leisure. Now that it's open, what do you see as the key benefit that is brought to the development? And then more importantly, how did you structure those financial deals?
Well, I mean, we're a leisure developer. So actually we go around taking out retail, I hate to say this, and replacing it with leisure. In fact, we have another scheme where we've reduced the retail to zero, taken it all out and replaced it with leisure. And part of that, I think this applies to shopping malls, is that retail is no longer a necessary trip. It's now competing with other people's time, and they don't need to leave the house as much as they did to actually do the retail. Mm-hmm. You've got to make it worth their while, and that's where leisure plays its part, basically. Traditionally, though, leisure has been added on as an added thing, and it's not been fully integrated into stuff. And so we actually sit in 12th Street next to a very large shopping centre. There's about 100,000 square meters. I usually think in square foot, but there's a European audience. So 100,000 square meters of retail next to us, including a large department store. And we trade really as a combined entity, effectively. But in order to get our brands going, we had to do two things. We had to drop our financial covenants. So we had to accept that we would be working with entrepreneurs, many of whom had no financial status, and that we would have to invest alongside them effectively to get things running. So Gilles has had sort of JVs and operating companies. We've gone down the routes of effectively investing at the beginning of their lease to get them going, but also trusting often local entrepreneurs. In some cases, we've done emerging national brands. But you can imagine going to I have American investors based in New York, and saying to them, "Hey guys, we're going to have a robot-themed cafe." And they're like, "What?" You know. These are two local guys in Milton Keynes, or a local couple who are mad about robots. They've collected robots for years. They had a small cafe in a library. We now have a massive cafe with them. But apart from just the fact that it's a great attraction, they have attracted the news, the radio, corporate bookings, lots of social media, and that digital aspect is really important now for retail. And I hate to be rude, but buying stuff is not very sexy on social media. Doing stuff is very sexy. People want to share their experiences on social media. They're not very keen on sharing, "Oh, I just bought this thing." So your leisure also impacts on your digital profile, and that is massive, because your shopping center is now not just bricks and mortar, it's also a digital presence, effectively.
Well, that is key, and that's something that, standalone attractions and theme parks started capitalizing on a while back, which is about those grammable moments. Those pictures that people can share on social media, on Instagram, or whatever the case would be. It's very interesting to hear that it's working for you in regards to your leisure units from the real estate side as well. Interesting addition there. But I do want to go back a little bit to what we were just talking about, which is working with entrepreneurs with unproven concepts.
Yeah.
How do you get people to buy into that in terms of your investors? When you said you invested a little bit into it, was that through TI? Was it through decreased rent? And how do you give people it's good to take a risk on these guys, I guess, is the key challenge.
Yeah, I mean, we have had some failures. We've had one or two that haven't worked, but it's a combination of an affordable rent, and you cannot charge these guys the same rent as they would pay for a national multiple, obviously. And then a combination of a lot of rent-free and capital contributions. And landlords get very stressed about capital contributions, but in reality, my view, what you're getting is a great fit out. And although you don't own the fit out at the end, you benefit from it effectively. But in terms of how did I persuade my investors to do this, focused on the operational side. So, for example, we have a virtual reality operator here. We discovered him in East London in a small warehouse, and we went to see him. We experienced what he did. We tried his products, we researched him as an individual. So he is actually Belarus, and he and his partner are fantastic programmers. They're gamers. They live and breathe this stuff. And so I was able with them to build a business plan for the investors, which said, look, these guys know about virtual reality. They get it. What they need is a home to do this properly, not a sublease in an industrial unit in East London. And the robot people, you know, they had already featured on British television. They had Facebook followers of something like 5,000 people. So they had a track record as operators, and that enabled me to persuade my investors that they could do the business. I think if I had two entrepreneurs who had no track record in their sector, they had no ability to pass due diligence, then I would struggle. But if you find the right people who know what they're doing and have passion, so, you know, Gilles had his surfing thing. If I had two guys turn up who knew nothing about surfing, I wouldn't even talk to them. But if they were like ex-surfers who had done surfing schools elsewhere, or maybe had done some pop-ups, I could make a compelling case to my investors to back them, basically.
Yeah.
So it comes down to operational quality.
What I find interesting is that you built the business plan in partnership with the VR guys, and I think that that's the kind of partnership between the landowner, developer, and the attractions that we need to see more of. You know, I mean, Gilles, I'd like to hear a bit more from you as well about how you went from having an outside operator come in to do the surfing, and then have it to come to a different sort of deal structure. How did you get to that level?
Well, I will say three things. First, I answer and then surfing. We had two cases. First case was for the nursery we developed with the Leisure Way. Initially, we had to pre-invest landlord, which is a big landlord, which is Abu Dhabi Investment Authority. So they gave us incredible capacity to work, but you had to deliver a return on investment at the end. But so the investor plus the manager step up only 1 month before the opening. In this case, what happened? We decided to create a joint venture between the landlord and the supplier itself. So he secured himself 50% of his own equipments, which is important. And we took a financial way with a guarantee to secure the supplier, because this is also the problem, not to stop the business. But what is completely incredible, and you must think of it as a landlord, is that we had to create a joint venture model. So we had to make a business plan. So we had to make the number runs with a P&L. And at the end, nobody wanted to step out, neither the landlord nor the supplier, because we discovered that there was a very good return on investment. And we had an exclusive concept, and we had a payback at the end. So this is very important, because most of the time we face not to CEO, not to boards, but to asset manager. Okay. And we don't give them opportunities to go back to the board, because most of the time we just say, okay, listen, it's leisure. There is no return on investment. It's difficult to quantify, but the cost is 1 million, 2 million, 3 million. If we run the number, if we start with basic hypothesis, how many people will attend, what will be the average ticketing price, what will be the total turnover, and what is the return on investment, they have something to advocate the project. So leisure is not only a affair of cost, but it becomes also an opportunity. But look at how it happened with leisure. Most of the time, we talk to people and we don't deliver them tools to deliver a return on investment.
Yeah, and I think one of the challenges there, I 100% agree with you, Gilles, is the fact that for so many years, retail managers or landowners have just looked at it in regards to a sales per square foot basis. That's it. What's the rent I can get? What's the sales per square foot? And the idea of actually taking that extra level of effort that both of you have taken, so from what you were saying, to build an actual business plan, actually build a multi-year P&L, and show that it's a valid operation is a step that a lot of retailers really should, not retailers, mall owners should be doing to test if they're the correct concepts. Because if it is a valid business plan, there is some way to get around it. And I know, Thomas, you've probably seen quite a few other ways to strike those deals that if you can justify, that it's not going to lose money. I don't know if you'd like to share some of those sort of examples with us now.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting, Ashley's point about buying into a brand or an individual and an entrepreneur, because historically, I think we as a real estate sector have been a little bit lazy in assessing these businesses. It's just been, here's a cinema, there we go, that's great, we've done. And I think we're seeing a lot more interrogation of concepts. And certainly some of the projects we're working on, for example, the Trocadero in London, where you've got these amazing locations opposite Piccadilly Circus and the lights there. We're having brands come to us as opposed to traditional tenants and saying, look, we want a brand house here. I won't say the names of the people we're speaking to, but this has been done elsewhere. We've seen it with Samsung at King's Cross in London. We've seen it with Johnny Walker taking a location in Edinburgh where they become brands. And actually, you as a landlord, oh, there's Johnny Walker, Edinburgh.
Oh, there it is.
You as a landlord have to start looking at the P&L of a business and actually understanding a P&L. And I think lots of innovative landlords are starting to look at advisors, whether that be, any people in this room, in this virtual room, and actually understanding where the revenue is coming from, because often these operators are actually driving the revenue from the marketing budget as opposed to a rental budget. And I think this is going to be something which is going to be a continuing trend in particularly large flagship locations around the world. Times Square, London, Hong Kong, wherever it may be, and these brand flagships. And I think that's something that we as a real estate sector we need to work much harder on, to understand P&Ls. We don't do it enough.
And I think actually I want to build on that a little bit, because we had an earlier chat briefly about some things, and from our perspective, from where I come from, we do the feasibility testing for attractions, and that is not data which is typically readily available out there. You build up a database of KPIs over time. You can't just purchase a report like you can for the hotel sector, for example. So we do feasibilities based on that. But the challenge always is when you're looking at a mall, the existing commercial leisure within malls is the lack of data collection. And I know, Thomas, you had some thoughts on that and the challenges behind that you wanted to share as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting that mall owners and developers, and I can't be too critical here because these are all my clients, of course, but again, we as an industry, is anyone listening? We're incredibly poor at understanding our consumers and our customers. I remember going to Disneyland about 10 years ago with Disney, and they provided a tour for me, and they knew where every one of their customers was at every point of being in the park. They knew their spend, they knew the location, they drove you around the destination, they drove you to the restaurant. Every element of that customer visit for the day or the 2 days or whatever it may be you were there is driven by, effectively in that case, the developer, which is Disney. We as a sector in real estate are still, I think, a long way off there. There are some innovative developers doing it, particularly in Asia and the Middle East. Yeah. But we need to work harder looking at the holistic development as opposed to here's a tenant, here's a tenant, here's a tenant. We need to understand our data, capture where we can legally, of course, to maximize the customer experience.
And I think, one very good example of that is, the Dubai fountain in Dubai, where, that's free. That was a huge investment, free entertainment. There's no return on investment on it per se, but you better believe that those people at Emaar know exactly how many people are coming every day for that show and sitting at those terraces, and what that additional revenue is that fountain is bringing in. And I would actually put that out there as a challenge to any developer or mall operator is, start tracking this, start figuring out why people are coming. Are they coming primarily for the leisure? And if so, what's the ancillary benefit to the retail? Because it would make it much easier to measure how much you're willing to invest in the leisure element of it. I don't know, Ashley, if you have any thoughts on that, if in the projects that you're doing in terms of measuring your customers, where they're coming from, how frequently they come, why they're coming.
Well, I mean, leisure operators traditionally, or leisure landlords, haven't really measured data as good as shopping center owners. When I did run shopping centers, we were using Bluetooth technology to track customers going around. But I think there's a bigger picture here, which is that many malls across Europe and America are trying to retrofit leisure into them. And the problem is leisure, as you move around it, it's not like retail. And I see a lot of malls where the shops all close at like 6, 7 o'clock, all the shutters come down, and then the leisure is trying to exist in a little part of the mall, which is sort of dingy, dark, and the journey to get there is actually pretty unpleasant, basically, because a lot of leisure comes to life in the evening. And the designers have not thought about how people get into leisure and get out and move around. It's just been tacked on the end, basically. And if they were to look at the Bluetooth signals in people's phones and see how they moved around, and to think about that journey, because let's face it, much of the new leisure in shopping malls is going to be added into existing malls in the next 10, 20 years. We're not going to be building a lot of shopping centres, are we? Let's be honest. And if you put the leisure in the wrong place and with the wrong journey to get there, it's going to fail, I'm afraid. And we are seeing that in some malls in the UK where the leisure is not working and our restaurants are going empty, and some of the cinemas here may not reopen in some of those malls. I mean, just a further small point, we talked about operations. I think sadly, COVID means that we will lose some of the big leisure operators globally in the next 6, 9 months, and landlords may have to step in and operate some of these places. So you better get used to being an operator, because you may have to do it actually in the next 6 to 9 months. And it's a skill base that people need to get.
Yeah. I think it's a very valid point. Gilles, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, there's something in the right lane with Ashley. I think landlords should not only become operator because they have to, and they must be organized for this. I accepted Majid Al Fouta in maybe, all of the Middle East, which created already a leisure, food and entertainment department with all the things involved in this going to management. And maybe ECE in Germany, they have also, with our friend Jonathan Doty, created this kind of department. So you have people, I always say, stop hiring asset manager, hire artistic director, because you need to manage it. And this is the only way. And you're right, Ashley. Leisure can transform light into diamond, but you cannot warm a cold zone. So don't jeopardize leisure before starting, because you wouldn't put a flagship in your car parks. So don't do that in the leisure.
Agree.
Yael, sorry, I don't know if, because we have some questions from the audience. I see that the conversation was really sparkling, and I would start with one provocation that was in the chat. Somebody says that probably the mall of the future will be without traditional retail. It will be just about F&B and experiential retail, with some example like Area 15 or other example. But at the same time, other people in the audience say, no, the concept will be much more about an hybrid micro city. So, retail is just one of the services that the consumer can benefit, but we'll find lots of other things, so experiential retail, food, and other kind of services. And somebody talks about also of a private-public partnership. What's your idea about it? What's your opinion about it? Is this the future where we are going?
Who do you want to answer that first?
I'll put my hand up for that quickly.
Because he hasn't
very quickly.
The others.
What in the name of our company, P3 actually stands for People, Places, Property, and there's a reason for that. And I think too often in our industry we haven't put the people first. And if you took any mall in the world, in Europe, most of them could go anywhere. It's so hard to differentiate between any mall in Switzerland, UK, America. They've just got a different restaurant. And actually, we need to create the mall of the future will be the mall that's most relevant to those local communities around them. And I think that is what we need to work on as a sector. And actually, a mall may have a library in it because it's the most relevant thing for that community, and there's no library there. It may have a theme park because there's no theme park in that catchment. I think we need to make things much more relevant to the communities, and that community could be a very large community or it could be a smaller community, but we need to stop developing these identikit malls, which we've all been victims of doing. So that's just my quick thought.
Well, I'd like to in there. Sorry.
Right.
No, I think I just 100% agree with you, Thomas. And I think one of the things, the identikit, the thing that the commercial real estate world can learn now more than anything else from the themed entertainment world is build a story. Have a consistent story and a consistent theme throughout. I mean, just like Disneyland is 100% different from Universal, which is different from Islands of Adventure or Animal Kingdom. The point is every mall should be relevant to its market, and that theme and that story can be woven throughout everything instead of looking at it as a bunch of interchangeable little blocks. So that was, let me take it up to the theme entertainment industry for a second.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I think I would add that a lot of mall owners think that leisure will completely rescue their mall. If you have a mall which is like, 30,000 square meters, 50,000 square meters, there isn't enough leisure to fill that mall, frankly. And in fact, if you put that much leisure in, the leisure will start to eat itself. We found in the UK that people putting more and more restaurants into their shopping centres, and actually there was not enough business. People can't eat enough food to keep that many restaurants going. So you need to have hotels, residential, community space, offices. These malls are huge. We built them too big in the 80s and the 90s, I'm afraid, and leisure cannot take on tens of thousands of square meters of space. It's part of the solution. And in fact, I think one of the problems is that the mall industry has seen leisure as the only solution. It's not. It's one actually quite small part of fixing it. Let's face it, in a typical town, you need a lot of shops, but you don't need 5 cinemas. So again, there's only so much you can do in terms of adding cinemas to a town or adding bowling alleys. So I don't think malls will become non-retail, but I could see the retail maybe only being 40%, 30% of a mall in 20 years' time.
Gilles?
Yes, yeah. 2 things. First of all, I think that what should happen now with landlords is not only to become operators, but they should become co-producer of content. Because, same way retail offer has become very boring because we find the same thing everywhere. Leisure is a trend also. But of course, we are the first to say, okay, we are fed up with bullying, we are fed up with karting, we know that blah, 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 blah. But we are also fed up now with climbing malls, VR rooms, trampoline park, it is. So if you want to be exclusive, you need to take time to create your own concept and become architects. And the second thing as a conclusion for myself, I would say, I think that a huge trend is coming and it is killing me because, I love so much retailtainment. I've been spending years like a retailtainment prophet, explaining what it is, how it is, explaining that we had to move from hyper retailtainment to indoor retailtainment. This time, I think, this extension is over. It is over because of COVID, and it is over because the amount of money we have to put it as activation and not sustainable things. However, we are attending now to the complete regeneration of the concept of retailtainment. And it's back to roots. Entertainment is coming back inside the outlets with a lot of co-branding, IPs, renaming. We've seen this week Louis Vuitton launching a huge global partnership with Pokemon, with goodies, with the stores. This is the future of retailtainment because the experience will happen in the store in itself, which is the goal. And with the money we will save with artificial activation, we will be, I think, able to reinvest in leisure. And leisure will be in this extension in free access. And will be one of the architects of the placemaking. So new road will be defined between leisure and retailtainment to have sustainable, not only return on this investment, but to have a right balance between investment, activation, and long-run business. That would be my conclusion.
Yeah, Yael, another question probably to close the panel. was Mark in the audience that say if we move the offer, we have the idea to have a mall with lots of F&B and leisure, and how to move the offer from once, twice destination to a regular destination.
Well, I don't know who wants to take that first. Go ahead, Ashley.
Okay. Well, it's interesting that I've been involved in things like factory outlets, and I haven't done airports, but I've been involved in them on the sidelines. What I think is interesting is that their spaces are often quite temporary. So their units are able to change very regularly. It's almost like a white box solution, as we say in the UK. So you can let somebody in to do something for 6 months, 12 months. Mm-hmm. And I think part of the challenge is that you will have to refresh your brands. So you'll need to design your space to be more flexible. You know, can you move walls easily? Can you provide extraction? Can you change between restaurants without there being £500,000 to do the conversion? So malls were designed to be very hardwired. You know, this is a department store. This is a shop. What we need now is spaces more like conference centers, airports, where you can move things around and create different spaces and keep it fresh. You only need to change maybe 5% of your mall every couple of years to just add that extra dynamism. But you're right, if you leave it for 10 years or 5 years, it will get stale quite quickly, because we live in an age where people get bored quicker, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah, and another thing also, sorry, Thomas, we know pop-up store for retail. We know concept store for fashion or handcraft. We should imagine to replace our vacants, leisure concept store and leisure pop-up. Leisure pop-up would be invested by landlord and would run all the portfolio and would be over financed. From the second activation, it will be already paid. And you could pay it through the marketing fund and you will save money. And leisure concept is also something fantastic. Just take the worst vacant you have, around 800 square meters. It's a nightmare to commercialize it. You take it. 1 month you make VR room. The other month you make Microsoft. The other one you make edutainment. And if you have a portfolio of assets, you make everyone moving mall from mall, and you create an incredible experience. So I think that's the future, maybe.
I think that's an interesting one, because that really ties back to what I said at the beginning about how the consolidation of the industry will have, assets within one larger company eating, basically cannibalizing each other. Maybe the benefit there would be that you could invest, that these larger groups could invest in leisure concepts that can move from location to location. So it's not a temporary pop-up every time that's invested by the individual mall. It's actually at the ownership level. Thomas, do you have some thoughts on that in terms of increasing, how to increase repeatability over time?
I think both comments are exactly right. I think coming out of COVID, it's going to be even more relevant. I think the three biggest takeouts from COVID and the change in the market are going to be around the availability of finance for fit out. A leisure operator spending $10 million on a fit out is going to be a thing of the past. The long-term financial sustainability, if you need massive revenues, that's going to be very difficult for long-term sustainability, sorry. And staying relevant, as Ashley says, the days of a 25-year lease are gone, and that's not what you want. So the availability of finance, financial sustainability and relevance, you have to find a solution to that. And I completely agree with Ashley, and we're working with a couple of our clients on creating this uber flexible space of one day it's a cinema, the next day it's a community center, the next day it's something else. That has to be more commonplace.
All right, thank you. I think we're due to round up now, unless there's another question you want us to do, Francesco.
There was just maybe the last one is more related on the COVID. They say how can leisure operator handle the create a robust strategies to cope with the changing scenarios due to the evolving regulation in Europe. So each day, almost each week, the regulation is changing. So they can find the right strategy. But That's, I think it's for the midterm, short-term, midterm, but we are talking much more about vision in the long term.
We're talking more about vision. I think, if it's okay with you guys, I'll answer on behalf of the attractions industry, because we got this one the other day as well. Which is, there's only in the short term, you're going to be limited by capacity issues. The ways to get around it as much as possible is to reduce your touch points, have people pay via, Apple Pay or whatever. Pre-booking gets people to change their behavior patterns in terms of when they come. We've already seen that within Europe, that people are changing their behavior patterns and coming during the weekdays as well weekends. Part of that is easier because a lot more people are working from home, which we didn't have in the past. But people are adjusting their behavior. We would not suggest planning new developments around COVID, because there's no reason to construct something now that will be antiquated in, say, 5 years' time, and will actually just remind people of this horrible time that we're all going through. So,
yeah, but I agree, and that's why we say that COVID was just an accelerator of some change that was already underway, and we need to think about the future and things. What will be the destination of the future? We will work in a few months thinking to the future of destination. That's what we'll talk about at LeisurUp in 1 month's time. So
you can do some stuff on a temporary basis though. So we're about to create a large tented area. Really large, in our main plaza, and we will have tables out there and event space, which will be available to all tenants. So if your customers want to eat outside under cover, they can do that. If you want to put on an event, you can do that in the open, where it feels safer. We've got better social distancing, and that gives extra space and capacity to our tenants to get through the next 6 months. But also it helps us so that if the government here in the UK banned inside events, we're fine. We can move the event outside into this space. It'll be a temporary installation. And, I think you need to do things like that to protect your site and give it more options depending on how the regulations evolve. Otherwise, you're right, you're going to be in big trouble. But it's a nightmare. We're having to change every day virtually with new regulations. And leisure really is in the eye of the storm. Hospitality is being smashed by every European government unfairly, in my view, very unfairly. But we just have to deal with it, I'm afraid.
So,
sorry.
Let's go.
Yeah, I'm just, in order to wrap this all up, I'd like to give each of you guys the option to say to anyone out there who is a developer considering putting an attraction in, or to an attraction that's looking to go into a commercial development, what is, in one sentence, a key recommendation or advice that you would give? So, Ashley, I'll start with you.
Design it in from the start. Don't add it on.
Okay. Gilles?
Be the actor of your own story and become co-producer of leisure concept.
Okay. Thomas?
Genuinely understand your consumer.
Good, because that goes in line with mine, which was understand your market and analyze it to death.
Thank you, Francesco, and
thank you very much to all of you guys. It was really great and insightful. And please, we give you a rendezvous now at LeisurUp in 1 month's time. Thank you, Yael.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.